Our next speaker is Peter Canavo. He's an environmental political theorist. He is an associate professor of government and director of environmental studies at Hamilton College. Peter.
Thank you. So, almost 30 years ago in 1988, NASA scientist James Hansen testified before the US Senate about the unusually warm weather that year. And he warned, it's time to stop waffling so much and say that the evidence is pretty strong that the greenhouse effect, that's what they called it then, the greenhouse effect is here. That was 29 years ago. So what's happened since? Temperature records broken year after year, Arctic sea ice retreating, glaciers melting, ice shelves collapsing, superstorms battering our shores, and island nations vanishing under rising seas. And yes, lots of waffling, decades of climate denial, and relatively fruitless international negotiations. And then finally, we had a ray of hope with the Paris Agreement in 2015, and the beginnings of a turnaround in climate and energy policy under President Obama. It seemed that Hansen's warning perhaps had finally gotten through. Well, now our nation's highest office is occupied by an ignorant, blustering reactionary who calls climate change a hoax, who wants to roll back Obama's climate policies and slash funding for climate science, who's appointed as head of the EPA a fossil fuel industry lackey who still denies that carbon dioxide is changing our climate. Excuse me for being blunt. 29 years later, this is where we are. It's unbelievable. The truth is, many folks, including, unfortunately, our president, simply don't want to accept the reality of climate change. That's because dealing with climate change means the end of fossil fuels. It means reorienting and regulating capitalism and rethinking our relationship with nature. It means paying attention to fundamental issues of justice. And it means the end of simplistic thinking about what really makes us prosperous and secure. It means we need to build wind farms, not walls. Given how little attention it gets in the news media, you might think that climate change is a distant, abstract threat, or just a hobby horse for environmentalists. In fact, it's very real, and it's a fundamental issue of social justice. It's very real for the communities of the Gulf Coast and the Northeast who were devastated by Hurricanes Katrina, Irene, and Sandy. It's real to the Biloxi, Chitimacha, Choctaw people of Louisiana's Ile de Jean Charles, who are losing their home and history to the sea. It's real to the people of the Marshall Islands and other small island nations, whole countries that are literally disappearing off the map. It's real to the Alaska village of Shishmaref, which will have to literally move to escape melting permafrost and rising seas. And it's real to Syracuse homeowners along Onondaga Creek, who may now have to buy expensive flood insurance because of an increase in severe weather. Yes, we're not on the coast, but this is going to impact us too. It's real to everyone facing ever more severe droughts, heat waves, and floods, and it will be real to the tens and even hundreds of millions of people around the world who will be displaced by climate change by the end of this century. And among the most vulnerable are the world's poor, people who aren't even responsible for this crisis. And climate change is real to the living things sharing our planet and facing the 6th major extinction on Earth. Climate change may be, in fact, the greatest threat to civilization today. Yes, even more than terrorism. It's an environmental issue, a social justice issue, an economic issue, a security issue. It's a moral issue. And all of Donald Trump's bluster can't wish it away. We need to build wind farms, not walls. I have 2 teenage daughters, and I want them and their children to live on a just, hospitable, green planet. And yet things do seem pretty bleak right now. But we can win this battle. We need to march, and we need to speak out. We need to tell our politicians that climate change is a priority and that their stance on climate change will decide whether they get our votes. We need to reach out to fellow citizens who've been misled about climate change. We need to write to our local papers. We need to answer every single article, letter, and op-ed that promotes ignorance about this issue. We need to support federal, state, and local officials from both parties who stand up for our planet and its people, who stand against climate change and stand for climate justice. And we need to decarbonize our economy and encourage prosperity through clean energy. We need to build wind farms and not walls, because walls are not going to keep this out. And Trump and the other climate deniers in Washington are violating the most sacred trust, the most fundamental trust that people place in government, the provision of the most basic security. They're selling us out to right-wing ideologues and the fossil fuel industry. We need to tell them, you're fired. And we need to tell them to build wind farms and not walls. Thank you.
Wind farms, not walls. Hey, Peter. I was told now to make a promotional announcement that the CCAA volunteers are working the crowd with the buckets. Be generous. Our next speaker is Dr. Jamie Bodanelos, Associate Professor in Psychology at Hobart and William Smith College. Let me flip the page. You can tell I've done this a lot. She has over 40 peer-reviewed publications in the area of clinical health psychology, with a special emphasis on external factors that affect eating behavior and the role of mindfulness in health. Now, I'm sure you're all wondering how this ties in with climate change, so listen carefully. Thank you.
Hello. It's so great to see so many people out here today. Woo! I don't know about you, but I'm out here because I'm angry. I'm angry that the current administration is ignoring the unequivocal data that our climate is changing due to human actions. Not only are they ignoring it, but they're completely denying it and undoing all the good work that has been done by President Obama. It's putting our environment at risk and our health. What is more important than clean air, clean water, and clean energy? This shouldn't be a partisan issue, right? This shouldn't be about money, right? It should be about the welfare of the inhabitants of this earth. It should be about protecting our resources for the future, for our children and grandchildren. So since we have an administration that ignores data, and I will just say any data, they ignore science and facts about climate change, it's even more important for everyone to make choices that lower our own impact on the environment. One thing each of us can do is to closely examine our own eating behaviors. That's right, just making changes to our own diets can help the planet. For instance, red meat has been found to be the most emissions-intensive food that we consume. Eating meat requires land and water resources, farm machinery, food, and fertilizer. Cattle also emit a large volume of methane, a greenhouse gas. So for perspective, it would take about 50 onions, yes, I said onions, to produce 1 kilogram kilogram of greenhouse gas, but just half of 1 serving of beef to produce the same amount. In fact, animal agriculture is responsible for 18% of greenhouse gas emissions. That is more than the combined exhaust from all transportation, which accounts for only 13% of greenhouse gas emissions. Furthermore, livestock are responsible for 65% of the emissions of nitrous oxide, which is 296 times more damaging to the planet than carbon dioxide. And then I want you to think about the 7.5 billion people that we have to feed. So to save the environment and preserve limited resources that we have, we need to greatly reduce our consumption of meat, of red meat. So I want to ask everyone here today to take a close look at your choices and things that you can do every day to lower your carbon footprint. And I'm not saying don't eat any meat, although if you do decide to make that choice, that's great. But even reducing the amount of red meat that you eat can have a huge impact, especially if we have many people doing this. So think about embracing meatless Mondays. Or maybe this is a term I just coined today, Tofu Tuesdays. Right? That sounds great. Or maybe even have a vegetarian potluck. Invite all your meat-loving friends over so that you can experiment and try lots of different dishes. So at this point, we really can't wait around for anyone else to make a change. We know we cannot depend on the government right now, right? So we must make that change ourselves. We must be the change we want to see. Our future generations, our children and grandchildren will need us to do that. They depend on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie. Our next speaker is Elizabeth Grace Ferguson, a high school senior at Tully High School. Yay, local! She writes, I started to become concerned about climate change when my grandmother, Catherine Burns, brought it to my attention at a very young age. I clearly remember helping my grandmother make signs for her demonstrations and asking her questions about fracking and fossil fuels. Ever since elementary school, I had a concern for the world. I remember first learning about climate change in high school, my freshman year, and being perplexed at all of my disinterested peers. We were learning about something important, our Earth, our home, our everything. I'd like to welcome Liz.
So earlier this week, I was riding in the car with my grandmother, thinking about what I wanted to say at this amazing event. At the same time, I was staring adoringly at all the beautiful greenery Tully Valley has to offer at this time of year. If you haven't gone there, you need to check it out, because it's amazing. I soon realized my speech's subject was right in front of my eyes. Sitting in my grandmother's red Subaru on a balmy Monday afternoon, I realized just how important the Earth was to me. The Earth has always been beautiful and amazing in my eyes, but I never quite thought about Earth losing her beauty. The soft green of the trees that met my eyes put a smile on my face, yet simultaneously created a hole in my heart. I thought, is humanity really going to let Earth deteriorate into a terrifying, unsafe, and poisonous place? It's so scary having to question the morality of having children later in life due to the environment we will be living in years from now. I wouldn't want my children to breathe in the countless amounts of toxins day in and day out. I wouldn't want to deprive them of springtime night walks I've had with my father since the age of 5 to find gorgeous salamanders and frogs. I want the smell after rain to make my children as happy as it makes me. I want them to want to play outside, not be horrified by an ugly landscape that was once the incredible green terrain I've had the greatest pleasure of knowing. From a millennial to the baby boomers and Gen X, do anything you can to help save our Earth. All those little things will add up and slowly but surely help remedy this crucial issue. Start to compost, carpool, ride bikes, use clotheslines, use drying racks for laundry, call representatives until they become tired of hearing your name. Look into getting solar panels or windmills. There's tables up there that can help you with that. Turn off lights when you're done using them. Organize events like this one. There's so much each and every one of us can do to make our Earth a better place for future generations. Despite the fact that the current administration is not taking steps towards putting an end to climate change, this can't deter us from helping the environment on our own. We can't stop this fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Jane Tretler will now introduce. We'll have some music for the next 10 minutes. Jane?
Hi, I'm Jane Tretler and part of CCAA that helped organize this event. We're always looking for new members, so if anybody's interested, please come and see one of us with the CCAA buttons, or you can find us online. It is my honor to now introduce our lead musician for this event. We are so grateful for her presence today. Pete Seeger, the famous folk music icon, once said of Colleen, "Joe Hill would be proud." Great singer and organizer at the same time. Colleen is a bilingual singer-songwriter, local, Portland area. Her music joins rhythms of Latin America with her own roots of rock and folk-laced compositions. She has been influenced by the voice and social message of singers like Holly Near and Jolie Rickman. Please welcome her backup members as well, Mike Brandt and Jane Zell, and the wonderful Colleen Cateau.
You want to do some singing? All right. And Joe, you going to do some beats?
Oh yeah.
All right, good. So this is a song that I wrote for Standing Rock, and I stand for Standing Rock. Do you? Yeah! So it just goes, I stand with Standing Rock. Can you sing that?